When I first started taking reading seriously, I'd finish a book and feel like I understood it, but then I'd be having a conversation with a friend or a family member, and I realized there was a lot of gaps in my knowledge and I just really couldn't explain it. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you what completely changed how well I remember and talk about what I read. When I started taking reading seriously, I'd finish a chapter, pull out my notes, and I'd write down everything that seemed important. Sometimes I'd basically copy the author's words completely from the book. But then I read this book right here and I realized that I wasn't actually retrieving the information. I was just looking at it and copying it. And so I started doing something different. I'd close the book and I wouldn't look back, and then I'd write down 3 key ideas and put them in my own words. The book calls this retrieval practice, and this is where you're forcing yourself to pull information from memory. And that's completely different from rereading it. The effort of retrieving the information helps strengthen your ability to recall it later. And using your own words also forces you to process what the idea actually means. But there's a problem with only doing this. You see, you can remember what the author said without thinking very deeply about what they said. And that's where this next part comes into play. I'd finish a chapter and know what the main ideas were, but then I move on to the next chapter and I wasn't really necessarily thinking about the ideas anymore. I wasn't actually questioning them, I was just accepting what the author gave me. And then I read How to Read a Book, and that completely flipped how I go about approaching a book. And that explained to me that I need to treat books like a conversation. And so I started asking myself 2 questions at the end of each chapter. This could be something you don't understand or you disagree with, something you want to know more about, something that made you curious, or it can be something that connects to another idea. The reason this works is because of the generation effect in learning science. Now you're no longer just receiving information, you're generating your own thoughts about it. You're creating questions that keep you engaged with the material, and you're starting to have a conversation with the author. The book is what gives me the ideas, and the questions are what get me to start thinking for myself. But there's still one more problem, and this is what really makes the knowledge concrete. I remember reading How to Win Friends and Influence People for the first time, and I thought it was a fantastic book. There was so much good practical knowledge inside of there, but I remember just reading it and just kind of keeping it all in my head. And I realized I was selling myself short because I thought back to whenever I was an instructor in the military, and whenever I would teach Marines a new skill, they would first get the lecture, but then they had to actually go out and perform practical application and apply what they learned, do it in real life, because you need that real world feedback to be able to expose the gaps in our knowledge. So now what I do at the end of a chapter is I'll ask myself, what's one thing that I learned and can apply in the next 24 to 48 hours? Some of the feedback you might discover is that you misunderstood the idea, or maybe that it works for you, that it doesn't work, or it works differently than you expected. And now the idea isn't just something you read, you've actually experienced it. The real world gives you feedback that the book can't give you. And there's one more bonus thing I do sometimes whenever I really want to make the knowledge stick. And what I'll do is I'll ask myself, what does this remind me of? Or how does this connect to something I already know? This is an optional upgrade. You don't have to do this for every chapter, but when you make a really good connection, that's when a new idea starts becoming part of what you already know. 3 key ideas, 2 questions you have, and 1 thing you're going to take action on. But sometimes the book's just too difficult to get through. So watch this video next, because I'm going to share with you how to get through difficult books. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next one.